Hey everybody, I am Chase, and this is going to be the ultimate guide to Hog 2.6. So in this guide, I'm going to be giving some general strategy as well as some intermediate tips and some examples. So let's go ahead and just hop right in. So to start, this is not a beatdown deck, it's a cycle deck. So it's not a deck where you make those constant Ice Golem, Hog, Fireball pushes. Your main damage is actually going to be coming from playing more strategic, counting their cards, counting their elixir, and outcycling their hog counters. Also with this deck, defense is going to be your first priority. So 2.6 has great defense with its ability to cycle. Nearly no other deck has a 2.6 or faster cycle, meaning you can always win the race to get your cannons down for the hog, or get your second musketeer down for a lava loon push when they kill the first one, or even just beat them in a fireball cycle contest. In this deck, it's easy to just kind of keep wanting to go in and getting the hog damage, but you should really be sure that you have enough elixir to defend if you're going to plan to throw a hog out. A lot of the times, you may just get a little antsy for some damage or to get back up in damage, and it maybe leads to them getting good counter push, and that may be the entire game right there. And then you post about the infinite elixir theory. So next up would be that your cards synergize with each other, and that is extremely important. So, for example, you could defend Fire Spirit with an Ice Spirit and then Hog in front of your Ice Spirit. And that would take care of Skellies. You could get a hit or two past a Mini P.E.K.K.A, a Hunter, a P.E.K.K.A, whatnot. Or maybe you kite a Mini P.E.K.K.A with an Ice Golem opposite lane, and then you Hog with that Ice Golem. And even if the Ice Golem only has a few arrows from the Princess Tower worth of health left, that's still some health that's off your hog, and that may be the difference between one hog hit or even two or three hog hits. And then another example would be maybe Ice Spirit or Skellies in front of a surviving Muskie, crossing the bridge to force a response. So if you have maybe it's going to die anyway to the tower, and you're going to Ice Spirit anyway, may as well just Ice Spirit in front of that 1 HP Muskie and get her a few shots off or force out a response from them, like a Mini P.E.K.K.A, a Zap, and arrows or something. And then if you're a bit higher elixir, say you're at 8, 9, or 10 elixir, if you've got a surviving Muskie, you can go ahead and Ice Golem or Hog in front of it. Only whenever you're close in elixir to 10 and you'd otherwise just hog on its own after the muskie's dead. So it just kind of synergizes them together. Another example would be to defend wall breakers with a low cannon in the middle. It kills them both. And then you've got a full health cannon right there, so you may as well hog in that lane. Try to get something out like maybe a Mini P.E.K.K.A, Mega Knight, something that your cannon can then put the work in on once it crosses again. Some other synergies would be Evo Cannon Blast in a Fireball kills Evo E-Drag, and some other Fireball bait cards too. And a Log and Fireball will kill Witches, Wizards, and any other Fireball bait cards. So some starting plays in Hog 2.6. It's very important to know which cards you cannot just cycle off the start without knowing what they've got. Those would be Musketeer, Cannon, and Fireball. You typically want to save those as a response, because if you start with Cannon in the middle, they can just punish opposite side with a win condition. If you Musketeer in the back, they can just go Lava Hound or Balloon opposite lane. And now, even if you cycle 4 cards and get back to a new Muskie on that lane, maybe they just spell it out, and now you're 4 cards away again from your next Muskie. Or say you Fireball, that's basically just 4 elixir down the drain for just a bit of tower chip, and a good player will know to punish that with either a big push in the back or just something immediately at the bridge while you are at 6 elixir or less. Now, some starting plays that you can do, you can Skeletons behind the King Tower. Those will walk up and prevent split wall breakers, or they could go behind a hog and be anti-tornado, causing another response. You can Skeletons kind of a bit higher in the middle, and that will defend an immediate wall breakers or a princess at the bridge. You can Ice Spirit at the bridge. That's going to be nice chip damage or force out a response from them. You can Ice Golem in the back behind King Tower. That's going to start a defense in that lane, but it is a bad starting play if they have Expo, since that'll be your main tank. So if you see stuff like archers cycled, or maybe, Tesla, log, skeletons, whatever it may be, just be careful about Ice Golem like that. You can also Ice Golem above King Tower, so that's going to start a defense if you have a feeling that they're about to go in. So maybe ×2 or ×3 elixir, that's probably a bit better whenever nothing's on the map, because you know it's about to be, your main tank for whatever's about to come. You can hog at the bridge. That'll force out their hog counters, and then you can remember which defenses you can spell predict on later in the match, and which defenses cannot be predicted on. And then you'll want to outcycle the ladder, the harder defense, and then spell predict on something if possible. You typically don't want to Ice Golem plus Hog at the bridge as a starting play, since you can be punished with a Mega Knight, Mini P.E.K.K.A, P.E.K.K.A, Bowler, or any building. But it's not really the end of the world, and it can sometimes get a game-winning amount of damage because they were in a bad cycle to start. So if you do this, just make sure it's anti-tornado with that specific timing and placement. Now, some ways to improve as maybe a beginner with Hog 2.6. 1, stop fireballing with your hogs and ×1 elixir. This offense costs you 8 elixir, and it can be easily punished. So for example, if they mini P.E.K.K.A for your hog, you're now down 8 elixir, and you have to defend that mini P.E.K.K.A again. Next up would be to stop hogging with a surviving musketeer whenever you're not near 10 elixir. So this only works out if you know their hand, but typically you're already down elixir after your first hog, so hogging again with that surviving muskie just kind of puts you in a worse spot. Next is stop going for spell predictions before you know their deck. So this kind of just is all around bad. If you hog, log, you hit nothing, maybe they've got Goblin Gang up other side, maybe they Goblin Barrel with a tank and you force out Fireball, then they pump, or some crazy sequence like that. Now, you kind of want to save the spell predictions for either later on once you know their deck and their current hand, or in ×2 and ×3 where you can afford missing those predictions a bit more. And lastly, a way to improve will be to watch your replays and identify where you took negative elixir trades or where they were low in elixir and you should have hogged. So telling when your opponent is low on elixir and can be punished with a hog kind of becomes intuition the more you play and the more replays you watch. This helps you develop a feel for how much they can attack while still having a hog defense available and the elixir for that. So you'll likely find your opponents are constantly overcommitting whenever you watch those replays, and you may see that would have been a great spot for a hog that they couldn't have done anything about. And if you're ever in a spot where you can defend for a minimal amount of elixir and then still throw a hog down the lane of their weaker tower, you can sometimes get a game-winning amount of damage while keeping your tower, all because they overcommitted and played 3 or so cards back to back. So, maybe they play Royal Ghost, then they Bandit, then they play something else like a Zap, or, really anything. That's a good amount of elixir. So maybe you're playing bridge spam, like I just said, and they then can't afford a P.E.K.K.A, or whatever that may be. So you'll just want to be on the lookout for those kind of moments where you see several things go down and kind of have an intuition that they may be low at that moment. Next segment, I want to talk about the cards to level up first. So an underleveled Ice Golem will not kill bats or skeletons, which is very important in Golem Night Witch matchups or Giant Graveyard, where you can usually throw it into the Horde to clean it all up, such as all the Night Witch bats or Graveyard skeletons. It's extra important that you have a equal level Ice Golem in the metas with Skeleton Army, Skeleton Barrel, Skeleton King, where you'll usually want to save log for other cards like Dark Goblin or Goblin Barrel, and then you can use an Ice Golem as an emergency to clean up all those skeletons. An underleveled log will not kill logables, so like Dark Goblin, Princess, they actually have slightly higher health than a log does. That's -1 level, so that's good to know. An underleveled ice spirit will get one shot by the musketeer. So whenever the muskie's crossing, usually you can only take one muskie shot with a single ice spirit on defense. That changes a lot. If it one shots your ice spirit as it goes down, it will not jump. Underleveled skeletons take 2 shots to kill their skeletons. That's important for graveyard, where you're trying to defend their skeletons with your skeletons and make them kill each other, or whenever you're defending skeleton army with a high skellies when it crosses, because your skellies will not thin out a few of their skeletons. Underleveled fireball will not combo with log anymore to kill witches and wizards. Underlevel cannon, it'll die to a second royal giant shot, and it's generally weaker versus many win conditions. It also will not one-shot goblins. Underleveled musketeer will die to fireball, and again one-shots goblins, or will not one-shot goblins. Underleveled hog has a harder time breaking through buildings and landing a shot on tower. 2 hog hits plus an ice golem death will no longer finish off the cannon if your hog is underleveled. And then also, just kind of some general tips. I advise you to play to practice. So it's okay to lose. I recommend you watch this video, and then maybe when you're playing some matches, you'll think back to these tips and maybe do something different. Maybe you stop yourself from hog fireballing first play, or whatever that may be. The strategy for ×1 elixir now, it's kind of for figuring out their deck and making a plan. You'll use that time to decide what your strategy will win, or to win will be. So whether it's going to be a hog cycle game, a muskie cycle game, or a fireball cycle game. And then in ×2 and ×3 elixir, you can start spell predicting more often, going for ice golem with each of your hogs, unless your ice golem is consistently needed to defend, and then your lone hogs are also breaking through with that nice golem. And then also, if you decide to start fireball cycling in ×2 and ×3, you should stop hogging and just full commit to the guaranteed damage that your fireball gives each time. So moving on now to, I want to talk about the difference between hogging into a building and hogging into a troop. So whenever you hog and they defend at the building, you're only up or down the difference of elixir that building costs versus your hog. So for example, if you hog and they Tesla, you are even in elixir. If you hog and they mini P.E.K.K.A., you then need to defend the mini P.E.K.K.A. So say that you then kite that mini P.E.K.K.A. for 2 elixir using an ice golem. You've now maybe got no damage. You spent 6 and they spent 4. So you're just down 2 in the end. Picturing your opponent's hand and thinking through how they could possibly defend will prevent you from hogging right into something that gives them counter push that you cannot defend. Now, the 3 main ways to win with Hog 2.6, depending on your matchup in your opponent's playstyle, is hog cycling, musketeer cycling, and fireball cycling. Now to start, hog cycling. That's where you outcycle their best hog counter that cannot be predicted on, and then you can go ahead and predict with your second hog if they have something to predict on. So for example, if their matchup has, if they've got Bowler and Goblin Gang, you'd want to wait until Bowler is out or force it out with the first hog, and then you can log or fireball predict with your second hog. That method does get trickier if they have a third or fourth response, say that a rocket or a building, where you may need to get that out instead, as that is the more solid hog. Rocket is just going to kill a hog no matter what. And then you have to make a head push into the bowler, the building, or whatever that may be. Or you can catch them while they're overcommitting, so they maybe can't afford a bowler, or building, or rocket. Next up will be musketeer cycling. So you'll cycle musketeer in the back to help with defense repeatedly. If you're going to plan on putting a cannon in the middle at some point, you'll want to put your musketeer in the bottom corner so it's not right next to the cannon, giving them fireball or snowball or arrows or poison or whatever value it might be. You'll really use the musketeer cycle method in matchups where they have no big spell, so they can't really deal with a musketeer on your half of the arena. It's also used whenever hog is not connecting to their tower, so this kind of clogs up the lane and prevents them from making the push they're wanting, and several muskies down on defense is absolutely insane. It can just shred things like a P.E.K.K.A with support behind it. It's just all gone. It's crazy if you keep those muskies alive with your life. Some examples of matches where you'll muskie cycle are Hogs Recruits with no Fireball, Hyperbait, and Goblin Giant P.E.K.K.A Machine. Really, the matchups where you need all your elixir on defense, and hogging would likely put you down 4 elixir and needing to defend their counter push, which may be the end of the game if you did not hog at a good time. Okay, and then next up will be fireball cycling. So whenever your hogs are not connecting and your musketeers are getting spelled out, you can prioritize fireball cycling. So basically, you'll want to take any fireball value that you can get while still being able to defend. So for example, for Splash Yard, where they have Goblin Hut, Ice Wiz, and Tornado for Hog, and Poison and Bar Barrel for Musketeer, unless you catch them in a real bad cycle or they overcommit, you'll probably be falling behind on damage due to the graveyard and poison chip you're taking. So you'll have to take fireballs on Ice Wizards, Baby Dragons, etc. If they're over the weak tower, it's at least ×2 elixir, and you are even or behind in damage. If you're up a good bit of damage, you can play a bit more defensively and just make sure that you defend. So again, once you start fireball cycling, you need to stop hogging. Fireballs are guaranteed 300 or so damage, while a hog is the same elixir, but sometimes won't connect or gives them counter push that you have to defend again. Now, hog placements. So the default placement for a hog is in the corner at the bridge. That is pulled by buildings that attack, so cannon, bomb tower, inferno tower, that are placed in the same lane. Now, if it is a spawner building like Goblin Hut or Tombstone, that can actually go into the opposite lane and pull your hog, assuming it is not the lowest position. Another hog placement is Ice Golem in the middle of the bridge, and then Hog Rider in the default placement. This brings the hog toward the building at a diagonal angle, so the building targets the Ice Golem. There's also Ice Golem with Hog, middle of bridge. This is good against Fisherman or Skeleton Army, where you kind of just need a fast offense, and the Ice Golem is the tank for the hog. You've also got an anti-tornado push using Ice Golem and Hog. This is necessary to win matchups with Tornado. And especially if they have Tornado in another hog counter, such as Building or Bowler. So you can outcycle the Bowler or the Building, and then make that anti-Tornado push. Also, we've got Ice Golem with the hog running past it. That's good against Bowler, Rocket, Mini P.E.K.K.A, P.E.K.K.A, Mega Knight. What happens is the tower targets the Ice Golem, while the troop targets the hog, splitting the damage between the two and getting significantly more hog damage. So, for example, Mini P.E.K.K.A or P.E.K.K.A, two-shotting a hog normally kills it whenever the tower is on it. But with this way, the tower is going to be on Ice Golem for a while. The Mini P.E.K.K.A is going to take 2 shots, or the P.E.K.K.A is going to take 2 shots, and your hog's going to be 1 health and get another shot on their tower. So kind of makes it a 3-shot to P.E.K.K.A if it runs past the Ice Golem. If it goes behind the Ice Golem, they can block the lane a bit easier and keep it in a straight line, so they can just kill your then your hog, and you may get a 1 hit and then have to deal with counter push, if that. And then lastly, you can hog and back with an Ice Golem at the bridge. This is used if every time you hog at the bridge, they just building and you just can't outcycle it, the building just stays alive. You can hog in the back, Ice Golem in front of the hog, skeletons, Ice Spirit, log something, then you're back to your hog. And if the first building is dead, you can just go ahead and hog in the same lane. Or if they've built a huge counter push in that lane, you can just hog opposite lane. And now the building is out. All their elixir is on defense in that first lane, and you have a free hog basically. That is used in matchups with a quick cycle. So like the Hog 2.6 mirror matchup, Hog EQ, Log Bait. And then lastly, I want to touch on how to decide if you defend with Musketeer versus Cannon. So Cannon is prioritized whenever you're facing a ground heavy matchup with lots of ground cards. You need to keep a quick cycle, or you'll get lots of Evo Cannon value in that matchup. So defending with the cannon will help you cycle to an Evo cannon, and it's cheaper than a musketeer. So it's necessary in those kind of faster cycle matchups to stay in cycle with them. The downsides are you're opening yourself up to a win condition push because you have no cannon in hand, and you do not get counter push from a cannon, so you don't really take control of the game. You want to prioritize a musketeer whenever you're facing an air heavy matchup. The defense or counter push is more important than the one elixir you're saving over cannon, and there's not much bait to get Evo cannon value on. You'll want to avoid defending with muskie in matchups where that one elixir can be the difference of you getting outcycled, such as minor wall breakers, hog, log bait. You'll want to keep it cheap with cannon usually. And then also, if you're running Evo Muskie, you may prioritize the Muskie as well over cannon just to get closer to your Evo push with a Muskie snipe on maybe a building or an Archer Queen, an E-Drag, a pump, or whatever that may be. So that's been it for this guide. I may come out with another follow-up video, maybe going deeper into certain matchups, or if you guys have any specific questions, put those in the comments below and I'll try to respond to them or make a new video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great day.